Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Think and Grow Rich Mastermind Show. My name is Dr. Peter A. James. Another show, another episode on this phenomenal book by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. In this show, we dive on into the principles that Napoleon Hill provides for us, 13 of these principles, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. I'm not by myself, however, I've got some distinguished angels, hosts who are going to be joining me. But before I bring them in, I want to ask you, how are you empowered? Let me ask it a different way. How do you stay empowered? One of the ways that I stay empowered is I pay attention to who I'm surrounded by, who's in my ear. What does that look like for you? Who is holding you accountable? Who are you able to bounce ideas off in order to stay sharp, relevant, get to your next level? I specifically have a mastermind that continues to play in my ear. I got colleagues, friends, peers that also do the same thing. But for you, what does that look like? Or is it just business as usual? And let's just face it, in 2022 and beyond, business as usual, I don't know if that's going to cut it. So without further ado, I'd love to bring in our distinguished hosts. I call them the angels. These individuals are also part of my mastermind. They also weigh into my subconscious. Actually, at nighttime, I hear them talking and I have to ask myself, oh, what's going on here? So without further ado, our first distinguished host, Galen Bingham. Galen, good morning to you. How are you doing today, sir?
Fantastic. There's a lot going on, but no matter what's going on, I want to make sure that I was part of this conversation. It's so interesting to your point about surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded and who are going in the same direction. The adage is that we are the average of the five people that we hang out with the most, not the five people that you want to be like,
Hmm.
but the five people that you hang out with the most. So before the show, and we're gonna bring Ann on. Before the show, some things were going on technically, and Ann said, "I can tell what's going on in your mind, Galen, by the look on your face." And that's the value of having a mastermind, that people know you, they know your strengths, they know your proclivities, they know what you're thinking, and they can speak into those spaces where you're not living up to who you say you want to be. You may be letting some limiting beliefs challenge what you know what you can accomplish, and that's the value of having a mastermind. Number one, they know you, and then number two, they're empowered to call you higher, as another mastermind of ours, a mastermind member of ours, talks about a lot. So I'm excited about this conversation. I'm excited about any time that we can get into this very, very rich text.
Such a great conversation there, Galen. This springs from chapter 9 of Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. Here's a question that we ask each other on a regular basis there, Galen. I love this, especially from our mastermind. How are you stepping into your greatness? How are you walking into it? And if you're not, what's getting in the way? Right? Who is asking, those of you who are listening or watching, who is asking you that question? Who is it? If it's nobody, I'm just saying, Galen, just saying, man. Galen, we're not alone, man. We have a master class today. We're going to be diving on into this chapter. And, the individual, the young lady who has brought us into this fold needs no introduction, Galen, at all. We just call her the master wealth builder. Ann McNeil, good morning to you. How are you doing today?
Listen. Yes, the master builder helping build stronger and better lives and businesses and mastermind groups. Peter, we didn't discuss this before the show started, but you just teed me up when you mentioned the word about greatness, because Napoleon Hill tells us, and I want to ask all of our audience, we're talking about the mastermind principle today. But our host for today just teed the conversation up by talking about greatness. But what is it that Napoleon Hill says about greatness? Basically, he says that greatness is the ability to recognize the power of your own mind, embrace it, and then use it. So today we're talking with each other. We're talking to you because we are your mastermind group of accountability. And we want to thank all of you, Doretha, Colette, and all of you that come on every single Saturday morning very early to participate in this mastermind conversation. But today we're going to talk about greatness. We're going to talk about those two envelopes, and we're going to talk about how do you hold your mastermind buddies accountable, but how do they hold you accountable? What does this principle look like in your life on a daily basis? Because again, if you expect to have greatness, but what does it look like for you? So, Peter, Galen, I'm excited. We do want to make sure we let our guests know that our guests that we've promoted will be here on another day. So we just want to make sure that if you're sitting there thinking, okay, but wait a minute, we want to acknowledge that. And so Peter's going to share about that.
So you have us in the meantime. Hopefully we're okay. But this is the question that we're going to pose to you who are listening, who are watching, and we're going to discuss it about this greatness. But here's the thing. Anyone who has achieved some level of success, they have not done it by themselves. It may seem that way. Hollywood may portray it that way. Even sometimes the books or the TV shows that we watch make it seem like, oh, how do they do it? They're so strong. They're so focused. The fact of the matter is actually the secrets is that they don't do it by themselves. They have advisors, colleagues, mentors, coaches, but definitely a group of individuals around them to support, to strengthen, to sharpen their minds. I'll read from the text, chapter 9. Napoleon Hill says, analyze the record of anyone who has accumulated a great fortune and many who have accumulated just modest fortunes. And you will find that they have either consciously or unconsciously employed this mastermind principle. Here's how he finishes off this little segment. He says, great power, remember I talked about how you're empowered. Great power can be accumulated through no other principle. And so, Galen, I want to bring you back in, and we're going to have Ann talk about the principles in just a little bit. But Galen, as you reflect on your own use of this mastermind principle, whether it's through coaches or mastermind itself, as you reflect on your career, your business, especially lately, how does it help? How does it help you, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, I'm reminded of Bruce Lee. Bruce talks about how life is basically a series of plateaus. You must stay there, you must break through. And the thing about a plateau is while you're on that plateau, all you see is what's on this level. And you don't see anything higher. And mastermind members are people call you to the higher plateau. They see things in you that you might know is there, but you forget from time to time. And they remind you of who you say you are. They remind you of accomplishments and capabilities that you have that you might forget about. As well as I love the way Napoleon Hill talks about when two like-minded people come together, a third mind is in the midst. So yeah, so that's the way I've used my mastermind members to help me see that next plateau, as well as remind me of who I say that I am, and because we all forget from time to time.
Yeah, good stuff. We're going to dive on into that a little bit. The need for that in your life, to have that someone else's to pour into you, to strengthen you, to sharpen you. But Ann McNeil, we have this video that we're going to get ready to watch about these 13 steps. Excuse me. I was wondering if you could tee that up for us a little bit to share with our audience what they're getting ready to watch.
Absolutely. First, I want everybody to think about how do you use these principles of success in your everyday life? And as you think about how they are built upon a foundation. Like I'm a contractor by profession. And as a general contractor, we start with the building of a foundation. So these principles start with the foundation, start with the foundation. And the bottom of that foundation for these 13 principles is desire. And built upon that desire is your faith to achieve that which you desire. And then Napoleon Hill goes on with the rest of those, So you can mix and choose how you want to build that foundation until you get to the roof, which if you're building a house as a contractor, that's your desire. But what is your desire? So listen to these 13 principles and you decide how you will build that house for yourself for success.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the MasterMind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
Good stuff. Those are the 13 principles there from Napoleon Hill. I'm going to bring our distinguished angels back into the fold. Let's talk about those 13 principles, but also as it relates to being held accountable, being held to greatness, and having others in your subconscious seep into your subconscious so that you can aspire to continue to be great, right? And McNeil, I know you've done this so well. You've had these masterminds. How do the masterminds impact you personally?
Well, first let's talk about the fact that it is not all great. We talk about being great, but when you decide to mastermind with people, there's some good, there's some bad, and there's some ugly, right? And oftentimes it is a matter of us being honest with ourselves and really being willing to go to places that you may not want to go to in your personal and also your professional life. And those places, and I'll just speak for myself, when you asked me the question about my masterminding experience, when I first started this journey, I was broken, but I did not know how bad it was until I started aligning myself with other people. I like to share with my clients, only iron sharpens iron, iron cannot sharpen paper. And when you mastermind with people who are willing to hold you accountable, they don't have to be smarter or I'm reading this book called it's by Emerson. It's a collection of essays, and he's talking about the gentleman, and manners. So it's not just about people who we may think are richer or smarter, but people who have manners and who are willing at your level to hold you accountable and pull you up to the next level if you desire to go there. And so for me, Peter and Galen, and for all of our listeners, that's where I found myself in 1979, 1980, and even to this day. Because as we aspire to be more, do more, have more in the spirit of service, we must become more. And so it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, whoever's listening, you can always do more based upon what God is calling you to do. So for me, Peter, Galen, I knew that more was just getting out of debt. That's where I started. And it took me years, literally 10 years, to get out of the debt that I was in. And people say to me, oh, well, you're the master builder. But you see me now, but you didn't see me then, 79, 80, in the 80s and the 90s, and even in the early 2000s. And so I just want to encourage all of us that's listening and participating in this podcast, don't look outside of yourself for a masterminding formula, a success principle, a one magic button, like hit it and voila, I'm here, right? No, that's not going to happen. But the power of masterminding with others on a daily basis and checking yourself in your spiritual life, checking yourself in your finances, checking yourself in your family. Galen, we were talking before the podcast started, and I was talking about the annual meeting. He said, oh, excuse me, but family goal. Family goal. I'm masterminding with my wife, and we won't be there next year. But to me, that is why we do this. It's not just about what we say in terms of the mastermind principles. It's also about what we do. And for each of us, what does it look like? We want to thank Angelina, Renette. We have a lot of people listening in. And so when each of you stop and think about what is it that you truly desire, not just in the area of money, and good morning again, Wyman, all of you, but what is it that you desire in every single area of your life? And how do these principles apply to that success? So yes, I am challenged, and I do struggle like everybody else, Peter and Galen, but I don't have a problem in sharing that because again, we all struggle, but few of us are willing to talk about it.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff there, Ann. I'm I really believe that these principles have changed my life wholeheartedly. Think and Grow Rich has done that, especially from a perspective of my mindset, my focus, how I think, and how I mentioned earlier at the top of the show, how I'm empowered. So, how do I step into my greatness? You might ask, and I'm going to ask Galen the same thing. One of the two ways that I do it is I pay particular attention to my environment and my circle. My environment, where are the places that I am around physically and mentally, even psychologically, that I exist in? Are those places the places that are aligned with who I'm trying to be? And then what goes along with that environment is my circle, i.e., my mastermind. Who am I continuing to surround myself with? Galen said the quote by Jim Rome: "You are the average of your 5 closest friends and/or family." What are the messages that are repetitively being mentioned or stated to you? Are they all positive? Are they all uplifting? Are they all focused on the future and the ambitions and the possibilities? And if they are negative or even negatively affecting your subconscious, what is that doing to you and your mindset?
Mm.
So sometimes, Galen, it's important for us to really identify who it is that we are talking to regularly and what are they saying.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, what are some of the messages that they may be saying to themselves out loud that might be impacting us? What are your thoughts on that just in general there, Galen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's so important. You know, one of the biggest things that I think each of us need to satisfy for ourselves, particularly in the Black community, but I think everyone in general, is our relationship to money, because we've been told so many times that money is the root of all evil. Trying to quote scripture. Scripture doesn't say that, actually, but that's what we've been told. In my family, the conversation in the at the table has always been, you want to be successful, but you don't want to be too successful, because then you become one of those kind of people. So that's suggesting to a 5, 6, 7-year-old mind that there's a limit to what you should aspire to. And I've got one story that I tell a lot, and it's about Anne McNeil. So I'm going to see if I can make her blush here just for a little bit. Um, this was about understanding my relationship to money. And there was a point when my father his health was failing. And so at the last minute, I would leave where I am and I would drive back to Arkansas, where my parents live, and was just driving back and forth. And I'd drop things, I'd cancel meetings, and just kind of jump in the car and take off. And I remember at one point in time, I was at my parents' home, and I get a call from Ann McNeil. And Ann McNeil said, "Galen, this is what the money is for." Right? The money is not for buying stuff. It's for being able to take care of whatever you believe is important. And right now, you are indicating that your family is important. And one of the things that my dad passed away earlier this year. But one of the things that I'm really, really excited about was, there was a point where his care could not be adequately serviced in the town that he was in, and there was better care in a town 2 towns away, but he would need to be airlifted, and the insurance that he had didn't cover that. And I was able to say, just do it, right? Because of the relationship to money. That's what money allows us to do. So when we say think and grow rich, we're not just talking about money, but we are talking about money. We're talking about the freedom to do the things that will lead to your riches. And, it's just so easy to get lost with what we're doing, but we're actually talking about the best way to live life. And so the best way to live life for me is in pursuit of freedom, and money provides you that freedom in many, many cases. So I wanted to share that. We got to put Ian back on the screen. I got to see how she's taking this story that I shared with others so many times. But I think about that a lot. Those life experiences, that is what money is for. Being able to do those things that are important to you, rather than and I share with my wife all the time. I don't want to admire a number in a bank account, right? It's what can we do with this money that we're accumulating, that we're working so hard for.
And McNeil, any comments?
Oh, wow. I want to remind all of our listeners that Napoleon Hill says that, a mastermind group is a coordination of effort between two or more individuals in a spirit of harmony. And when you think about what Galen has said, we three here are a mastermind group. That's one. All of us, along with all of you, under the umbrella of Think and Grow Rich International Mastermind Association, we are a mastermind group. As we mastermind, we start with the desire. And what Galen is sharing is his desire for his family could not, should not, would not, and was not impacted by a lack of money. But that would not have taken place if he had not done the work with his mastermind group of accountability and the inner work that's required in order to have the money. And as you were speaking, Galen, and I would say to God be the glory for that story, because I'm very mindful and very careful that it is for me. I can't speak for anybody else, but it's because of him that I can now see that my trials, my struggles, my tribulations, and all the things that I've gone through and will go through is not for me, but it's for the benefit of others. Because what I was reminded of when you were going through that with your father, I was reminded of my own story, which is why I reached out to you. I was reminded of my own story years before my mom became ill and years before I lost my father. My desire was to take care of my parents because we came from a sharecropper's background, right? And so my desire in having more money was to be able to do what I want, when I want, wherever I want, whenever I want it, with whomever I want, and money was not a factor. And my family comes first in that. And so my desire was to have, this. Now I lived in a rented apartment. Okay, so understand the story. But my desire was to have a place where my parents became ill, I could bring them in my home. And God blessed me with the 7,000 square foot home on a golf course, actually 2 golf courses, cul-de-sac, swimming pool. I mean, you name it, fruit trees in the back. Look outside, you don't see a house nowhere, right? But my point was this: who did I have to become? And see, that's the question for all of our listeners as you mastermind. Who did Galen Bingham must become in order to be in a position to take care of your family like that, to send your daughter to the school of choice, to take trips around the world with your sweetheart, girlfriend, wife? So I just want people to understand this is what we're talking about. What is it that you desire in your mastermind group of accountability? It's not just about what the money will do. In my book, I wrote a book called How to Start and Run a Successful Mastermind Group. And in the workbook on page 9, I give it's an inventory, the inventory for every area of your life. Money is only one small line. One of the things that Galen, we talked about was not just for your family, but for yourself. Do you have long-term care insurance? Do you have health insurance? Do you have car insurance? How about house insurance? Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. How about success insurance for your business? That was another principle called persistence. Persistence is insurance for the success of your business, but it's also insurance for the success of your financial freedom. And so we can go a lot of places with this. I want to just remind all of our listeners that when you think about masterminding, and if you don't have a group of accountability, and Peter and Galen, if you don't mind, I want to step to the beta test that we're hosting once a month. And Tia, if you can put up the JPEG, once a month on the second Tuesday of each month. And you can go to the internationalmasterminders.com/group mastermind, and you can find the registration for that. I'm not sure if it's on Eventbrite. I'm not sure if you can go to Eventbrite and find it. But anyway, you can go to our website. But every second Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, we host a beta test meeting where we discuss mastermind groups. It's for mastermind groups, especially the leaders of those groups. We have a conversation about what are some of the good things, the bad things, and the ugly things about masterminding. The good, the bad, and the ugly of masterminding. And if you're interested in participating with that in that meeting, just like again, you can go to our website at internationalmasterminders.com/group mastermind. So I hope that answered the question again. Yes, I'm honored, but I just know that again, as we mastermind with each other publicly, so that everybody can see and hear. Thank you, Tia. That was it. You can catch it on the replay.
Put it back up a little bit, please, there, Tia, if you could.
While she's doing that, I want to just, Wyman did put in the chat, the love of money is the root of all evil. And why? He said, if you love money, you'll serve money. So you can't serve money and serve God. The proper relationship with money has money serving you instead of you serving and
Wow.
the money. And so thank you so much, Wyman, for that. But again, this is the information for the beta test. And again, you can go to the website and get that information, internationalmasterminders.com/group mastermind.
Hey, you know, I want to say one more thing about that story that you just shared, Ann, because it ties back to what I said earlier about in that moment. You know, I talk a lot with my clients about how it is biologically impossible to think clearly when you're in emotional situations.
Ooh, I love
Very literally, the amygdala, which controls and responds to fight, flight, freeze, right? And it's there to protect you. It shuts everything down. It shuts down all of your wisdom. It shuts down all of your cognitive abilities when you are in emotional and stressful situations. And so you need to have someone to remind you of those things that you would think about if you were thinking clearly. And so in that situation with my family, I would have thought about that clearly under normal circumstances. I would have given someone else that same advice. But because I was in an emotional situation, I needed someone who knew me to remind me of what's important to me. And that's what you serve, because you knew me, because of our relationship, because we've been talking about life. We've been talking about my goals for, at that point, I think a couple of years. And so you were able to speak in and remind me of, Galen, this is what you say is important to you. And without that, I would have been caught up in the emotion of the situation and not thinking clearly, not because I wouldn't have cared about my family, but because that's what that's the biology of how we're built as humans. And that's why we need to have masterminds.
Yeah, good stuff. Great conversation. Thank you all. You know, Galen, you said something earlier that really sparked my interest to a certain extent. You talked about we as African Americans in our community. You talked about money, but I want to talk about our mindset first. Often in our communities, we have come from generations of challenges, depression, anxiety, bondage, right? And those messages have historically been passed down from generation to generation, and we don't even realize it. And if you go into many of our communities today, you can not only hear those messages, you can walk into them. Remember, I talked about environment, and you can feel those messages. You can feel those messages. And so now that spirit and that, those messages of scarcity, those messages of of lack, and it's the world is a problem, and I can't do it because, and complaining because everything around us is wrong, has some oftentimes followed us again from generation to generation. Now let me tag it on to the money thing too, right? With that, we often look at money as something that's fleeting and not accessible. And those who have it, maybe they were swindlers or they got it some type of way. And so now there's a connotation around that.
Yeah.
Right. All this has followed generations. What does that do? Go ahead, Galen.
Yeah, I want to jump in a couple points. Number one, Wyman Winbush is in the chat. He's always here, and Wyman talks about this very eloquently. He talks about the language that we use when it comes to describing money. Filthy rich, right? That those kinds of things, and he does a great job. And Wyman, you might put some of those phrases that we kick around there in the chat. But yeah, there are a lot of things Dr. Peter, you talked about the fact that it's really about trying to keep us safe, because the history of being Black in America is around being oppressed and there's danger associated with you being unsafe, right? Literally, you could die, right? And so your family wants to keep you safe. And so they will say things like, money doesn't grow on trees. You've got to work twice as hard, right? Those kinds of things. And they don't
stay at that company. Don't be trying to leave. Why are you leaving that company for?
Yeah, you got a nice
paycheck every other week.
A nice secure paycheck, right?
A pension.
Security, pension, right? And so they're hoping to do well. They're wishing you well, but that's not the same mentality that other families, other communities have. Right now, I'm going through the autobiography. It's kind of a journal of don't laugh at me, Matthew McConaughey, and it's very fascinating to experience him talking about his upbringing. And when I look at him now, you don't realize that he was Poe, right? As the joke goes, he was so Poe, he couldn't afford the OR on the end of that, right? He was Poe. But he had a mindset that he was literally trained to walk the earth thinking that everything what was at his disposal. And that was different than the upbringing. As I reflect on my upbringing, I was basically brought up to think you want to be successful, but you don't want to be so successful that you become one of those kind of people, right? And so just think about those comments that we say to one another in an effort to keep them safe. But for a 4, 5, 6, or 7-year-old kid, it's hard for them to understand the nuance that's included in that. The brain doesn't understand that we're just joking, that we're just kicking around phrases. The brain says, okay, well, I'm going to become successful, but I'm not going to become so successful because there's a limit. And that's what we start acting against.
Yeah. Ann McNeil, your thoughts?
Listen, I'm a contrarian. I want to take a different view.
Please.
I don't think it's a Black thing. I think it's a mindset. The poem, I was trying to find the page in the book while we were talking. And so for the students in this master class, if you can go to your Think and Grow Rich book and find the page. But Napoleon Hill, when he was interviewing Andrew Carnegie shared with him that there were 2 sealed envelopes that we each come to this earth with upon our birth. Two, two, two envelopes. And he says that in one of the envelopes, and again, this is about you taking the greatness, if you will, the greatness of your own mind at the age you can realize how great you are, and then recognize it and embrace it. But he says the first envelope, regardless of what color you are, regardless of what sex you are, what gender, what part of the world you were born in, we're each born with these two envelopes. And the first one are the advantages of life that you can enjoy. Those advantages deal with your sound mind, your sound health, really doing the work that you love to do, love, freedom from fear, freedom from worry, having a positive mental attitude, and then also having some kind of wealth, right? But then he also talks about the other envelope. Now, the other envelope that we end up with, you can think about them. They're all the negative things: fear, worry, doubt, suffering, anger, negative attitude, poor and in poverty, deeply entrenched in poverty. But all of these things come from our mind. And so the more I study this material and the more I read, it just even from biblical principles. And I am finding that from slavery, come on, somebody, let's go there, right? We were stripped of our birth rights, our name,
Language.
our language, listen, we just came back from a 5-country tour last month of Africa, right? We went to Benin City, Nigeria, Abuja, Lagos, two other places I forget. It was hard to come back. It was hard to come back, and I say that because, and we've never had this conversation, so maybe another masterclass will have this conversation about African Americans and Haitians, Africans, Jamaicans, you name any other Black person from anywhere else in the world. What's the difference between us? We don't have that conversation. We don't about master. Yes, we're still talking about masterminding. For those who are wondering, what is this about? Where's she going with that? Where I'm going with it is this: your mindset. Now we have the mindset, Dr. Peter James on here, and he talks about shifting your mindset. But what does it look like from birth? We all have these two envelopes from birth, but we don't recognize the greatness that we have from birth. Biblically, God tells us, whoever you study, it's not about Christianity, being Jewish, and this is not about that. This is about what have you been taught from birth. I'll tell you what I've been taught from the media, from my family, and all those things that Galen is tiptoeing on. I'll say tiptoeing around. You are nothing, never been nothing, won't be nothing. Don't try to hide or rise. Don't try to all these things. If you were not born here and you are Black, you are not saddled with those things. Actually, your identity is tied to your place of birth. So Africans consider themselves Nigerians, Ethiopians. Okay, you can go on with the uns. Europeans. Well, African Americans, when we mastermind, we have all these onion peels to to peel before we get to the greatness in that mastermind group. And so the question that was asked of me earlier, that is what I am experiencing. There were so many layers I had to my group had to help me uncover, if you will, all right, to get to the truth. And that's when I have this conversation with all of us who are listening. When you're sitting in this audience and you're listening years in the future to this podcast, I want you to stop and think about, how do you get to that place of understanding your greatness? Go ahead, Galen. I see your hand going.
Yeah. So two things. Number one, one of the things that I share with a lot of my clients in my groups is, and this is work from Laura Barrett, who wrote the book How Emotions Are Made. Incredible book. It literally froze. I was frozen for about 30 days after reading this. But one of the things that she talks about is the difference between fear and excitement is negligible. Literally, the body experiences the exact same reaction to fear and excitement. So when you are afraid or when you are excited, your body presents exactly the same. The only difference between the two is the story that you tell yourself about what's on the other side of this activity. Right. And because of the story that we tell ourselves, we will be afraid and therefore we might not show up fully. Whereas if we tell ourselves something positive about what's on the other side of this activity, we're going to be excited and we're probably going to lean into it more. That's the role that the mastermind can play. The mastermind can help reframe the story. First of all, check the story that you might be telling yourself. And then, if needed, reframe the story that you're telling yourself in alignment with who you say that who you've always said that you're trying to be. Because when you're in the moment, we believe what we think is reality. When in reality, what we think is hardly ever reality, right? At one point, we thought the world was flat. We thought that was reality. That wasn't true at all. So the mastermind is there to help you, number one, check the story that you're telling yourself about what's on the other side of this effort, of this action that you're wanting to take, and then help you reframe it if needed. One of the best places that I have been able to find people who are like-minded and that are able to do that is at our annual mastermind, our annual meeting in Boca Raton. So every year, like-minded people descend from all over. I was going to say all over the country, but literally all over the world. We have people coming in from other countries to be part of this meeting, because this is where you get even strangers, people you haven't met before, helping you check your story about what you're telling yourself about what you can accomplish. And if needed, they can help you reframe that story to be in alignment with who you say that you're trying to be, because that's the ball game. The ball game is the story that we tell ourselves about what's on the other side of these things that we say that we desire, these things that we want to accomplish. So I just wanted to share that. That's a big part of the work that I do. Dr. Peter, I know that that's a big part of the work that you do. I'd love to get what's your reaction to Laura Barrett's work?
Yeah, just this entire conversation has me going through my head and my Rolodex, and even thinking about how Ann was talking about African Americans versus Africans and how they're thinking and how we sometimes see ourselves as African Americans. It's very precarious. It's very interesting. And again, the messages, the thoughts, the language, as Wyman has been so eloquently adding into the chat for us. I'll read some of those. The language has been not always positive and uplifting. And Wyman says it's so good. When you have multiple streams of income, they call it a side hustle, right? When you have delayed gratification or you're living within your means, people say you're cheap, right? And so it's very interesting. I'm also going to read a few more that Wyman says here. Poor mindsets attribute negative connotations to wealthy habits. Warren Buffett has multiple streams of income, but no one calls this a side hustle. And even he goes on to say, yes, and it is color agnostic. Spirits have no gender, ethnicity, or race. The spirit of poverty can manifest in anyone, young, old, white, black, male, or female. And of course, the Bible says, as Wyman also mentions, you will have, if you renew your mind, you will have a wealthy mindset. Your thoughts, language, and actions will change. We sometimes begin to pass on messages that, as I think it was you, Galen, who said that keeps us safe. I've done it with my kids. You know, I've done it. I'm being honest with everyone here watching. I've done it, and I've had to come back. And here's a great example, really quick. My daughter was in the military. She was in the Air Force. She spent 6 years in. When she was getting ready to get out, I tried to dissuade her from getting out of the military because this is exactly what I was telling her. You know, you're under this umbrella. You're safe. You know, why are you getting out? Do you know what you're getting out into? The grass is not always greener. I was telling her, listen, I was telling me, the Shift Your Mindset dude, and McNeil, I was telling my daughter this not too long ago, right? But why was I telling her that? And I had to have a come to Jesus moment with myself and her to say, hey, you know what? You made the best decision, because I was, as your dad, I was trying to keep you safe. We do that in so many areas. Our time is drawing short here, folks. Such great, powerful messages.
But
Galen.
wait. Don't leave. Listen. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul Kelly, for that comment. Great
Yeah,
stuff.
thank you, Paul.
I got to go back to something that, gee whiz, this is awesome.
Lots of good stuff.
Yes, it is. But Galen reminded me, I think it was Murphy, the Subconscious Mind author. You know, he reminded us that the subconscious mind does not know the difference between true or false. It only knows what we tell it over and over again. And that is such a powerful, that is really $1 trillion quote idea that the advertisers use to convince us subliminally. And that's what you're doing with your daughter, because you've been convinced. But we subliminally are induced to think certain thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's not until we go back to the Napoleon Hill quote that says, you know, greatness is the ability to recognize the power of your own mind. That's first. You got to have the ability. That comes from this philosophy and many others. And then you must embrace that ability. You got to recognize it. You got to embrace it. But then it means nothing if you don't use it. Nothing at all. We know a lot of broke PhDs filing it higher and higher. We know a lot of broke professors and, you know, corporate people. Yes, corporate people. Because they're spending more than they're making, because the mindset has not shifted in terms of what are the true riches of life, if you will, right? So when we think about masterminding, and for those of you who are listening and are participating, Dr. Will, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the podcast. We need to have you on the podcast, Dr. Will. And I did get your message. So, Dr. Will Moreland, can I take a moment of executive privilege? Why are you laughing?
Please, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I just love how that sounded when you said that there, Anthony. That's all.
Now, Tia is going to get after me because she already said, listen, well, I'm not going to say what she said, but you know what she said. She got to go. Okay. But Dr. Will just showed up. Dr. Will, you asked, Dr. Will sent me a message. I hope you don't mind me sharing, Dr. Will. Well, I already shared anyway. He sent me a message. He said he's a part of our $1 million mastermind with Black NSA. And he's one of our facilitators. And so we're walking through the book, as many of you know, Galen and Peter, that's where we met. Every week we're walking through a principle per week. That's a lot. And you've got, well, no, we're doing 2 principles a week. Yes. So people got to read 2 until we get to organized planning. Then we give them a week to read 1. So right now we're working on the affirmation statement, right? And so he inboxed me and he said, hey, can you share your affirmation? And so I don't remember if I said yes, but I was going to get back with you, Dr. Will Moreland, and share with you my affirmation. And so we'll wrap up with this as we introduce. Actually, can we just do our 30-second, everybody go around, and I'll close with my affirmation?
Absolutely, yeah. Galen, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So for me, the biggest thing that was reinforced is just the responsibility of the mastermind and how this life thing is way too complex. It's way too hard to do to do life successfully without the support of like-minded people who are rooting for you, who are reminding you of who you say you are. If you're just drifting, if you're trying to do this thing by yourself, then you know your success, your chances of success is about as significant as a leaf trying to navigate the rapids. There's a chance you might make it, but probably not. So find like-minded people, as Napoleon Hill talks about. Find like-minded people who you can borrow their energy to help you accelerate the goals that you're trying to accomplish. That's what I'm reminded of.
How do we stay in touch with you, Galen?
Yeah, so you can stay in touch with me on any platform by searching Galen Bingham, or you can go to any podcast platform and type in whiskey, jazz, and leadership, and you'll be connected to the podcast. We talk to leaders all over the world. We talk about the whiskeys they drink, the jazz music they listen to, and what it really takes to be an effective leader. We double dog dare you to try us just once. We guarantee that you'll pick up something.
Good stuff. My name is Dr. Peter A. James. You can find me on any social media platform at Dr. Peter A. James. That's at DrPeterAJames, and also at shiftyourmindset.com. Here's my biggest takeaway, then I'm gonna pass it back over to Ann. I need to have these conversations regularly. For those of you who are listening and watching, I need to be reminded of my purpose and what could get in the way regularly in order for me to step into my greatness. So this is my environment. What's yours? And if it's not strengthening, if the iron is not helping to strengthen you, then you need to identify what that mastermind needs to look like for you. Ann McNeil.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. And if you don't have an answer, I know I have a book around here. Here it is somewhere. Then you can go to Amazon and you can order my book entitled How to Start and Run a Successful Mastermind Group. Yes, you can get the workbook, you can get the manual. But my name is Ann McNeil, and I am the master builder, helping you to build a stronger and better life and business. And if you'd like to connect with me, I would suggest that you join our Niche to Be Rich one day, yes, one day business retreat on the island from 8 to 3. You can go to annmcneil.com and all the details are there. Niche to Be Rich, one day business retreat. And a lot of the things we're discussing here, we will help you walk through those items for one day. Yes. Now, faith without works is dead. This is my affirmation. This is for you, Dr. Moreland. Faith without works is dead, and works without faith is dead. Therefore, I will work like it all depends on me, pray and have faith like it all depends on God. God is blessing me to be the very best person with honesty, integrity, frugality, and charity while being thrifty. He has chosen for me this day happiness, success, right action, peace, goodwill, and love for all. My desire is to do the will of God, serving God by serving others. I am blessed to be a blessing. Spiritually, I will rise at 4 a.m. daily, pray, meditate, read, and journal. Family, my husband is the most important person in my life, and my desire is to continue to express that through my actions. Financially, I will generate $15,000 passive income monthly and teach others how to do the same. Health, I am health conscious with food, vitamins, exercise, yoga, and a positive mental attitude daily. Education, I read in every area of my life regularly. Personal development, I have developed and created a personal development plan to increase my wisdom, my knowledge, my understanding, my craft, and my expertise to the glory of God. Business, I am building my 5 businesses to the glory of God by giving God praise and honor for every area of increase in my businesses. Recreationally, I enjoy recreational activities regularly. Civic, I am giving my time, my talents, and my treasure to my civic organizations and where I live, work, and play. Creatively, I am a creative being, giving God the praise and honor for creative ideas, hunches, and inspirations as I act on them daily. Dr. Moreland, that is my affirmation, and I am sticking to it. Thank you. Everybody have a good day. Dr. Peter, we'll turn it over to you. We want to remind you, please subscribe to this podcast. Please comment, like, and share, and we will see all of you next week. Thank you.
Love it. Love it. See you all next week. Take care. Same time, same channel. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube. Take care.